Yeah.
Following your dreams is a lonely, solitary, scary, dangerous pursuit. You can't wait for somebody to think you can do it. And it's like because they don't think you can do nothing they can't do.
Exactly, bingo.
Right? You know what I mean? It's like it's a lonely, scary, dangerous pursuit, and you got to be willing to risk everything to become that seed of what you believe is in there. You got to be fearless. You got to be relentless. Everybody has dreams, and as much as you want to be able to listen a little bit, because somebody's going to give you a gem, but nobody knows but you. You can't get advice on what you should do with your life, right? Nobody knows what you are. Like even sometimes you don't really even know what you are. You got to take your shot. And it's like, as much as you want people to agree and you want the people around you to be supporting your dreams and all, it's not going to be like that all the time. You got to do it alone. And people will help you, and when you get the ball rolling, people will jump on. But if you don't believe, nobody else is going to believe. People come along because your belief is so insane, that your belief is so strong that makes people be like, yo, this crazy. Grow or die was the basic central premise that we were working with. That if you don't grow, you will perish. There's one relationship that you have to maintain, and that's the one with you, right? And it's like, if you're not loving you, if you're not taking care of you, everything and everybody is second to you taking care of you. First and foremost, when you are steady and calm in yourself, it makes it easier to manage the insanity that other people are going to bring to you. The core of how things are created in the universe is through collision. You know, so you got to be prepared to collide if you want to create something. Only sustainable mission throughout your whole existence is to improve lives. And as soon as I made the shift in my mind from trying to be big and trying to have money and trying to be popular to making sure that I improved lives every step of the way on this earth, then all of a sudden I started experiencing healing.
You can't do that. No, you can't do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they just projecting, they're putting things that they don't believe that they can do on you. And you may possibly do it. Like my uncle, like he was telling me, like, my uncle said I never sell 1 million records. I sold 1 million records like 1 million times. You know, so he was, I'm sure I'm his nephew. I don't think he meant any malice.
He wanted the best for you, but
he just was
didn't
projecting
believe.
his fears
Right.
and things that, are you crazy? How are you going to do that? How? You know, I'm sure there's things that I do now that he can't believe that I was able to accomplish. But he couldn't even see it at the time. So he was just projecting, putting his fears on me. So the whole thing is just, you know, and always believe you're great, even before anybody else believes it. You know, it's an extension of my family. It's like the things that I do. I tell my family all the time. I tell my grandmother, my mom, you know, they're proud. They're super proud and strong women, and they won't ask me for anything. And I say, man, you know, there are times where I don't want to get my picture taken, and I want to eat, and you know, paparazzi like take photos in your face and screaming at you and like taking pictures, and you can't take your kid to the park. And I'm like, those are the sort of things that give the reason why I'm okay with it, and why I can cope and live with these things without, you know, as much as a complaint. It's the things that it allows me to do, the spaces it affords me, the rooms I'm allowed to go in as myself. It deals for the most part with success. It deals with people who you started your life off with and what success does to them. People look at you strange saying you changed, like you worked that hard to stay the same, like you're doing all this for a reason. And what happens most of the time, people change. People change around you because they start treating you different because of your success. So you are changing. You don't change who you are, the core of who you are, the things you believe, the things you love, and the things you die for, and your principles. You don't change that, but you're going to change who you are. You're going to change. You know, you can't do the same things that you can't hang on the corner. Some people may not be comfortable with that. And then it deals with the other side of success, how people look at you when you're successful. Media medals, people sue you, settle. Every step you take, they remind you get. So no matter how far you are, you still have that stigma on you of where you come from when you walk inside the door. Even if you have a tuxedo on, it's like, oh yeah, that's the guy who used to be this and did that. Most kings get their head cut off, right? I mean, in war, battle, and in life. at the end of the day, you've achieved everything you want. You've made it to the top of the throne, and at the end of the day, you just get your head cut off. Do things that are true to you. Most things that I'm involved with are extension of being creative. Rockaway is a clothing company. It's part of who you are, and hip hop is your attitude and what you're trying to express, how you dress. I love sports growing up. I grew up in a household where sports was on 24/7. So these are all things that are comfortable for me. These are things that I like. So I would just say get involved in things that you love, and also have a standard for yourself and have some sort of integrity, and try to, find some sort of truth in what you're doing.
I've got from teenage multimillionaires, 17, to the biggest transaction in the history of the world, $500 billion last year by one of my mentees. 500 billion with a B. A number of you have started a business at one time in your life. The first 50,000 or 100,000 euros in revenue when you start is geometric growth. So everybody that has ever started a business, generated any income, that's geometric growth, because it's starting from ground zero to the first 50, 100. Everybody with me? Okay. What happens? You stop playing to win and you start playing not to lose. When you decide that you really want to invoke permanent change, you start playing to win all the time. And nobody preaches that. They say keep 6 months reserve in your bank account, right? In case you lose your job. That's a common bullshit. For the first 30 years of my life, I spent 125% of every penny that I made every year. I was always, as you would say, in debt instead of debt. I don't know why I call it debt, but in debt. Why? Because I didn't want any backup. I didn't want any plan B. I either succeeded or died financially. I stopped that when I turned 60. It's my lovely wife, who's a chartered accountant, international tax expert, coincidentally. We started getting rid of our assets and turning to cash, except for the castle. So we're all in cash. So I don't spend 125% of what I made since I'm 60. But from the time I was 20 to the time I was 60, I did. I've got from teenage multimillionaires, 17, on my side, to the biggest transaction in the history of the world, $500 billion last year by one of my mentees. 500 billion with a B, Neom.
What did he do?
He convinced the Saudi government and the Jordanian government and the Egyptian government, mostly Saudi, to put up $500 billion to build the new city of the future called Neom. It's all online, and he's the CEO, Dr. Klaus Kleinfeld. I've been his mentor since 1997, so I've got from teenage multimillionaires to the biggest deal on the planet, everything in between. I've got no education, I mean literally no education, to multiple PhDs, Oxford scholars, etc. And there's no rhyme or reason, there's no real rationale why a PhD from Oxford to a guy that got out of the third grade, out of school when he was 8 or 9 years old, there's none, except desire, sacrifice.
You have a lot of success stories. But
correct.
There are people who not succeed, mentees.
Oh, absolutely.
What's the average?
100% of the people that follow the 7 steps succeed. They may only make 100,000 euros or 100 million. 40% of the people drop out because they can't follow the steps. 40%.
So what do they do wrong?
They do wrong.
Common mistakes.
Well, most of them, and you know a couple of the guys,
I know.
They go from the castle to the bank and they take the money, except they're robbing the bank without a mask and without a gun. That's how easy it is to get money today. It's the lowest interest rates in 5,000 years, the lowest interest rates. So they go to the banks and we show you how to get money from the bank in a legal way, just as you did, just as the other couple Dutch guys you and I both know. But then you don't do good things with it. I just had one of my superstars arrested 4 days ago for presumably taking $125 million in a bad way. That's a lot of money, $125 million. But we show you how to do it legally. Absolute 100% if you follow the steps. But you can just kind of vary a little and not follow the steps, and you can,
And you slide.
Correct.
All the way.
Correct. But 125 million, I saw a few eyebrows. That's just one kid. He's 28 years old. $125 million. What were you doing at 28 years old? Other than having your Geneva covered thumb up your ass.
What's their secret? Why can they do it?
Because they want change. Not everybody that comes to seminars, Michael, wants change. It's like when I was growing up smoking dope and doing heroin, and well, maybe not you, in the 60s was what you did where I come from. That's it, because everybody else did it. So you did it. Well, now everybody, well, you know, it's like sitting in the hall and, oh, the sun is great. Can I have another cappuccino, please? Well, you come to seminars, you're filling up the day. Most people, we've had people that I've met that, by the way, that 700 book kid came to this council seminar and he's about to close his first deal. He might have been today or yesterday. He's 19 years old. He's 20 now. 20 years old. 20 years old. But they really want to evoke change. They, you know, look in the mirror. Most of you, don't like what they see. Not just because you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're bald, you're gray, whatever. It's because you know what you could have been.
What's the best advice? How to do it?
The best advice is find something you love. Find something that can change 1 billion lives. Zuckerberg is a classic example. He changed more than 1 billion lives.
You know when you're in a crowd, a football crowd of great emotional excitement, you feel like a charge of energy. The hair stands up on your neck. That's electromagnetic. They're electromagnetic fields. So that's what I was feeling. But it did feel like a spider's web on my face. And I said nothing to Betty, but I'm thinking, what the hell? And then about 10 or 15 seconds later, she reels her head back and she said, my God, this is powerful. I've got to close my eyes for this one. And my bum's for going further down the... What have you got yourself into here, Ike? And she starts telling me in March 1990 that I'm going to go out on a world stage and reveal great secrets. I would face enormous opposition, but they, whatever that is, would always be there to protect me. And that there was a shadow over the world, and there was a story that needed to be told, that humanity was going to go through a phase of waking up and coming out of basically its coma, which is programming, and that I was going to go out and do that. One man cannot change the world, but one man can communicate the message that can change the world, was one of the things she said. And I'm sitting there, I'm a television presenter for the BBC, I'm a national spokesman for the Green Party, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? and so I then leave her and get on a train. She lived near Hassocks in Sussex, or in Hassocks actually, and then I drove up or went up in the train to present a television program. But from that moment on, one of the things that was said, that she said, because she said, the first thing she said, she had no idea about this interaction in the Kensington Hilton. She's saying that they're telling me they know you wanted them to contact you, but the time wasn't right, and you know now you've been brought here to be contacted. And they said they're saying that you're going to be led to knowledge, and at other times knowledge will be put into your mind. Oh, all right, okay, what? So anyway, what I've been like, mate, all my life is I've never dismissed things that I can't know absolutely are not true. I have this policy, I put things on the back burner and I see what comes. And if more information comes to support it, there comes a point where there's so much information supporting that it crosses the line, and you start to say, okay, I accept this is what's happening. But I don't just dismiss things, and never have, on the basis that they're different, just being the way I've always been. Yeah, it was. And one of the things was that, it was going to be tough. And so when I left her house and got on with life, very, very quickly, synchronicity, coincidences started to occur, where I'd meet people, come across information, come across books, come across documents, whatever, that were starting to hand me puzzle pieces. And I started to realize, as it built up and it built up and it built up, that actually the world was not like I thought it was. Well, not like I thought it was. I didn't really have a view on that. I never did believe that politicians around the world. I always felt there was something else.
You know, perspective is a word that seems very simple, but I think it's very powerful. It's very easy to get seduced into making something small a lot larger than it is. And perspective simply reminds us to go to 50,000 feet on a bad day and count our blessings. Perspective simply reminds us that things could be a lot worse. Perspective on a bad day is simply understanding that we live in a world where half the world's population lives on less than $2.50 a day. Perspective on a bad day is reminding yourself of that Persian proverb which says, "I cursed the fact I had no shoes until I saw the man who had no feet." Perspective is such a powerful word. Here's a great question on a bad day to bring on some perspective. Has anyone died here? So perspective is something I really want you to think about, and on a bad day, it will actually allow you to turn the lead into gold and really pivot. Which brings me to the second P of turning a bad day into a great day, and it's pivot. And here's the question to really help you pivot. WTOH. What's the opportunity here? So you're having a bad day, maybe you had a fight with someone, maybe you lost the big sale, maybe someone cut you off in traffic and then you didn't get your favorite lunch, and then you missed getting into Soul Cycle class, and then you had a difficulty on the way home. So let's say that's happening. You simply run the WTOH question, which will allow you to pivot. WTOH, what's the opportunity here? See, there's great power in a question, and it allows your brain to hunt for something good. And so how do you pivot? You ask yourself, what's the opportunity here? You have a fight with someone, let's say one of your family members. You say, what's the opportunity here? Well, your brain then starts to look for the opportunity, which is, I can learn how to communicate better. Or this is an opportunity for me to show forgiveness and grow in my personal bravery. This is an opportunity for me to understand my family member better. It's a great and powerful question. Which brings me to my third P in turning a bad day into a great day. And it's really pharmacy. The third P is pharmacy. And that's all about moving. When I have a difficult day, here's one of the first things I do. I will get on my mountain bike and I will ride like a bat out of wherever through the forest, and that releases dopamine in my brain, which is the neurotransmitter of inspiration. And that releases serotonin. Moving right on the bicycle, it releases serotonin, which is the pleasure neurotransmitter. And it cuts down on my cortisol, which is the fear hormone. So just simply going for a mountain bike ride, or going for a swim, or getting into yoga class, or something as simple as going for a walk, or maybe even doing jumping jacks when no one's looking, will create a pharmacy of mastery within your brain, which will affect your psychology, your neurobiology, and your interior life, which makes you just feel a lot better.
You need to feed your mind. Now, a lot of times people say, yeah, you know, when I'm down in the dumps just a little bit, I really enjoy listening because it gives me a lift. Well, I'm glad to hear that, but let me give you the most surprising news maybe you've ever heard. It's good to listen when you're down. But folks, the ideal time to listen is when you're sky high. Let me tell you why. When you're down, sometimes you grab at straws, and sometimes you grab the wrong straw. Also, a lot of times, and here's the real benefit to listening, it triggers your imagination, stirs up all of the stored information which you already have in your mind, and a lot of the good ideas then come forth. But if you're too down to accept them, then you turn away the very best ideas of all. Listen when you're up. And then with those endorphins popping, and they do pop as a result of listening to good motivational recordings, when you listen then and new ideas pop in your mind, it generates even more excitement. Here's what we've discovered. You need to listen at least 16 times to get the complete message. That's the reason I say listen to this over 16 times, because you will get all of it then. It will become a part of you. Let me say it again. You probably have been in the process of making decisions right now. As you listen, you will make those decisions. But as you listen over and over, the decision changes to commitment. And once you've made the commitment, then you will seek the training which will make the difference, because that means behavior changes. And when you change behavior, then you start developing winning habits. And that's what this is really all about. Step number 7, if you want to build a winning attitude, you need to take time, and this is probably going to surprise you based on what you've heard me say so far, but you need to take time to be quiet. You know, the average American sleeps 30 minutes too late every day. And when that opportunity clock does sound off, they hit the floor, I mean, in a dead run. They scoot past the kiddies' room on the way to the kitchen. They bang on the door, and they say, "Get up, kids, we got to go to school." Now, I don't have to tell you again, we were late yesterday morning. Don't want it to happen again. And they scoot on back to the kitchen. They plug in the coffee maker and the toaster, and on the way back by the kids' room, they bang again. Now, what I tell you, not going to have to tell you again. They scoot in, they get dressed real fast. You know, they shave and apply their makeup, and by then the kids are up. They rustle them into the den, and they set a bowl of cereal in front of them, turn the television set on, running their mind and their body all at the same time. They gulp their breakfast down, they hop in their car, and woe be to that person who dares to pull in on them when they've got the traffic jump on them. I mean, it will be too bad for them if they do. They hustle down, they drop their kids out, they rush on down to their work, and they're busy all day, and in the evening they come home and repeat that process, and by the time they get ready for bed, after watching 3.5 hours of television, they are exhausted.
Sit on your bed one day and ask yourself, what remarkably stupid things am I doing on a regular basis to absolutely screw up my life? And if you actually ask that question, but you have to want to know the answer, right? Because that's actually what asking the question means. It doesn't mean just mouthing the words. It means you have to decide that you want to know. You'll figure that's out so fast it'll make your hair curl. There's no better pathway to self-realization and the ennoblement of being than to posit the highest good that you can conceive of and commit yourself to it. And then you might also ask yourself, and this is definitely worth asking, is do you really have anything better to do? And if you don't, well, why would you do anything else? If you orient yourself properly and then pay attention to what you do every day, that works. And I actually think that that's in accordance with what we have come to understand about human perception, because what happens is that the world shifts itself around your aim. Because you're a creature that has an aim. You have to have an aim in order to do something. You're an aiming creature. You look at a point and you move towards it. It's built right into you. And so you have an aim. Well, let's say your aim is the highest possible aim. Well, then, so that sets up the world around you. It organizes all of your perceptions. It organizes what you see and you don't see. It organizes your emotions and your motivations. So you organize yourself around that aim, and then what happens is the day manifests itself as a set of challenges and problems, and if you solve them properly, then you stay on the pathway towards that aim, and you can concentrate on the day. And so that way you get to have your cake and eat it too, because you can point into the distance, the far distance, and you can live in the day. And it seems to me that that makes every moment of the day supercharged with meaning. That's how, because if everything that you're doing every day is related to the highest possible aim that you can conceptualize, well, that's the very definition of the meaning that would sustain you in your life. Well, and then the issue is, well, back to Noah. Well, all hell's about to break loose and chaos is coming. It's like when that's happening in your life, you might want to be doing something that you regard as truly worthwhile, because that's what will keep you afloat when everything is flooded. And you don't want to wait until the flood comes to start doing that, because if your ark's half built and you don't know how to captain it, the probability is very high that you'll drown. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. That sounded pretty optimistic again. But again, I think it's a description of the structure of existential reality, and by which I mean, when I'm in my clinical practice and I observe, and this is also the case with my students, is, let's say, people's lives aren't what they would like them to be. And so then you ask, why? Well, forget about tragedy and catastrophe, because that's self-evident, and we're not going to discuss that. Although the degree to which you bring about your own tragedy is always indeterminate. But I would never say that every terrible thing that is visited on a person is something they deserved. I think that that's a very dangerous presupposition, especially because everyone gets sick and everyone dies. But one of the main reasons that people don't get what they want is because they don't actually figure out what it is. And the probability that you're going to get what would be good for you, let's say, which would even be better than what you want, right? Because, you know, you might be wrong about what you want easily, but maybe you could get what would really be good for you. Well, why don't you? Well, because you don't try. You don't think, okay, here's what I would like if I could have it. And I don't mean in a way that you manipulate the world to force it to deliver you goods for status or something like that. That isn't what I mean. I mean something like, imagine that you were taking care of yourself like you were someone you actually cared for. And then you thought, okay, I'm caring for this person. I would like things to go as well for them as possible. What would their life have to be like in order for that to be the case? Well, people don't do that. They don't sit down and think, all right, you know, let's figure it out. You've got a life. It's hard, obviously. It's like 3 years from now, you can have what you need. You got to be careful about it. You can't have everything. You can have what would be good for you, but you have to figure out what it is, and then you have to aim at it. Well, my experience with people has been is if they figure out what it is that would be good for them, and then they aim at it, then they get it. And it's strange because they don't it's a strange thing. It's not quite that simple because, you know, you may formulate an idea about what would be good for you, and then you take 10 steps towards that, and you find out that your formulation was a bit off, and so you have to reformulate your goal. You know, so you're kind of going like this as you move towards the goal. But a huge part of the reason that people fail is because they don't ever set up the criteria for success. And so, since success is a very narrow line and very unlikely, the probability that you're going to stumble on it randomly is 0. And so there's a proposition here, and the proposition is, if you actually want something, you can have it.
You're here right now at this moment because tomorrow you want to be somebody greater than the person you are today. You see yourself succeeding, you have a vision, you have a dream. Congratulations. You're already 10 steps ahead of 95% of the world. Imagine if Michael Jordan was scared of missing. He would have never taken a shot. Imagine if Steve Jobs was afraid of people not liking his product. There would be no iPhone. So ask yourself this. Do you want to be a person who fears failure, or do you want to be a person who loves success? Which one? Because you're going to have to pick today. And I'll tell you one thing. One is a failure, and one is a success. And if you love success, there is nothing that can stop you. All those negative things people say will mean nothing. They're going to talk about how only 1% make it to the top. Big deal. Want to know something else? Only 1% stick with that fitness program long enough to see results. Only 1% of nerds stick with that video game long enough to get good at it. Only 1% of relationships stick it out to the end. That doesn't mean you have a 1% chance. It just means you can't behave like the 99%. You'll have to do something better than giving up a month from now. Those are just numbers. You want to talk about numbers? Take a look around you and take a good look around you. Are you like 99% of the people around you? If you are, then you're in the wrong video, my friend. You have to love success just as much because that's what's going to allow you to get up and go for it. Being scared to fail won't do anything. In fact, when you love success and you start going for it, guess what happens? You're gonna fail. You're gonna fail 10 times, 100 times, maybe even 1,000 times. But that's okay. Failure isn't permanent. Falling isn't permanent. you get right back up and keep going. And this time, you're gonna be stronger, wiser, and you'll be more driven than ever. And for every 10 failures, you'll land one success. You have to love success so much that you're willing to fail 10 times before you can succeed once. That's how a winner does it. I want to explain the biggest myth that most people think leads them to success. And here's the myth. You might believe if you're scared to fail, you won't fail. Lies. Biggest myth ever. And I believed it. You see, I always thought that being scared to fail in life would literally keep me from failing. I would look at the losers around me and I would say, sheesh, I never want to turn out like him. I really believed this train of thought would help me succeed. Until one day, I was walking down the street and I saw an old man. Had a hat, suspenders, and a cane. Was about 80 years old. This old man was barely walking. He could walk, but the cane helped a lot. He was struggling. So anyway, he was walking across the street and he ended up falling. So I went over to go help him. And he gets up, says thank you, and we introduced ourselves. Had a little conversation. Told me his name and I told him mine. His name was Robert, by the way. And right as he walked away, I told him, this is what I said. Robert, you should stay inside where it's safe, my friend. And Robert turns around and says to me, I love walking. And I love walking way more than I'm afraid of falling. So I ask him, well, what about your safety? Don't you want to live? And he told me this. These are the exact words he said. He said this. Solo, living means doing what you love to do. And if I have to fall here and there to do what I want to do in life, then so be it. And he just walked away. Never saw him again. That was it. But that statement really had me thinking, and it had me thinking hard because I learned something that day. That's when I realized the true key to success. You see, I always thought if I could just fear the act of failing, and if I fear it like crazy, I will succeed.
Everything that exists, everything within all creation, manifests through the harmonic vibration of light and sound. Everything that exists is light and sound. Everything that exists is, at its most basic form, simply pure energy.
You have to persuade infinite beings, multidimensional infinity, which we call humans, to believe that they are ordinary men and women in the street with no friggin' power.
This is my body, that's your body. This is my mind, that's your mind. There's no such thing as this is my life and that's your life. This is a living cosmos. Everybody is free to capture as much as they want. If you capture a substantial amount of life, your very presence will become a significant life, otherwise you will become a mediocre life. This is the important thing. It's not the knowledge you gather in your head. It's not the muscle that you gather in your body. It's the life well. To use another analogy. A dream, let us say we're dreaming that we're being attacked by a tiger in that condition. We're really afraid we're perspiring. We may even be rolling and screaming in our bed now. Is that dream? Real or illusion, the reality is we are having that dream.
And energy is the stuff that drives the universe itself. All things are created from this energy. If you really get down to it and look at reality on a quantum level, it's all about different vibrational frequencies of light and sound. Everything. And it's all connected because all is energy. What we experience in the reality that we live in is that everything is connected by energy, and the energy permeates everything, much like the water permeates everything that exists within the ocean. You see, we're actually swimming in an ocean too, folks. It's an ocean of energy.
And to do that, you have to spend centuries and centuries suppressing the knowledge and the information that would allow people to see the true genius that we all are. Instead of being infinite beings, the idea is to put us in these eggshells, as I call it. Eggshells overwhelmingly made up of the four-letter word that controls the world, fear. So we shut out all that infinite levels of ourselves.
Why are you laughing? This makes a lot of sense. So you're out here and you're groping around and you're looking for your keys and you're looking and looking and your neighbor comes along and says, what happened? Wait, well, I dropped my keys. Oh, I'll help you look for him. And the two of us are now down here looking for our keys and looking. Finally, he says to me, excuse me, but where did you drop your keys? Well, I dropped it in the house, he said. You mean to tell me that you dropped your keys in the house and you're looking for them out here in the streetlight? Doesn't make any sense. And I said, well, it doesn't make any sense to grope around in the dark when there's light out here. Now you laugh and think how silly that is. But isn't that exactly what we do when we have a problem?
We are quite literally moving through an ocean made of energy that permeates absolutely everything. And this is why everything is connected. This is why everything is one. Everything comes from a single source. And this is how we are connected, and it's how we are also completely separate. Now, when you really begin to get a grasp on this, and you really begin to figure out what's going on here, and you realize that the body is simply a biological computer that's downloading a specific frequency that you experience as yourself, you really begin to question why human consciousness is in such a disunited state. You begin to see how easy it would actually be to change reality. And you have to also begin to question how we got into this disunited state. We only have 3% of our DNA active. We're only experiencing a very, very small bandwidth of reality. And that most of our body's shut down. Our pineal gland is completely inoperative.
All that knowledge, inspiration, wisdom, understanding, instinctive knowing, and we operate in a fraction of who we are. Only then can the few control the mass. And if people think, and I understand it, that a few people couldn't control this planet because there's too many people to control, well, they just have to look at what happens to herds of sheep every day all over the world. If those sheep expressed their uniqueness and didn't succumb to fear, they thought for themselves, it would be impossible to control those sheep. But how is it done then? We find that we have actually out-sheeped the sheep. We have dispensed with the sheepdog. We police each other.
The reality there are tigers somewhere the illusion is we're identifying with it. We're thinking that that is me in this dream, and the tiger is about to eat me. But in actuality, the dream is real, we're real. But when we're misidentifying with that dream, thinking that that's happening to me now, then that's the illusion. That's the idea of yoga or true spirituality, to actually learn to live in harmony with one's own self. We have this physical body, we have the mind, and all of the thoughts and emotions that comes through the mind. But who are we? I'm seeing through my eyes, I'm hearing through my ears, I'm touching through my flesh, I'm tasting through my tongue, I'm thinking through my brain, and I'm loving through my heart. But who is that me? That me is the essential consciousness that's giving life to every other aspect of our existence, our body and our mind.
When you really look at the entire human organism from an energetic perspective, it is something that is virtually inoperative. The higher senses are simply not functioning. The connection and the ability to be able to read and decode the energy field around us is virtually non-existent. And because of this, we are literally experiencing about 3% of reality. If you had a car and it was operating to 3% of its capability, if you had a computer that was functioning on 3% of its processor power, able to access 3% of the internet and use 3% of its graphics, in both cases you would consider your machinery to be inoperative. And yet what we have is human consciousness driving a vehicle that is in exactly this same inoperative state. But we don't realize it's happening because we don't look at reality from the correct perspective.
Consciousness is unique, but it's part and parcel of what is universal. And unless we understand that uniqueness of our own true consciousness, then we can't really appreciate the universal nature and how we're all actually connected. Everything is connected, and everyone is connected, and everything and everyone in this world is interdependent. And Emerson said that the reason why there's so many problems in this world is because human beings are disconnected from their own true self. The senses, the mind, the intelligence requires to be in harmony with the heart and with the living force within the heart, which we call the soul or the spirit. And when we understand the sacredness, the beauty, the eternal nature of our own spirit, then we can recognize it in creation, and we can recognize it in others.
It makes it easier, yeah, but it doesn't cross the line where it becomes possible. That line is crossed when those who concede their mind to someone else's norms then insist that everyone else does the same. Because that's when the human race becomes not only the sheep, but the sheepdog. That's the point when we police each other. And when you've created this herd mentality, my goodness me, it's been around for a few thousand years now, and you've got people to police each other, what you do then is you break up the herd mentality into warring factions. What you do is you create organizations and belief systems that can be played off against each other, like religions, political parties, economic systems, and all this stuff.
When we don't realize, experience, perceive the sacredness of our own true self, then our perception is an illusion of the world. But when we understand who we are, and understand our harmony and relationship with the world around us, and the people around us, then we're actually seeing everything as truth. We're seeing as a spiritual reality, even in this world, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Albert Einstein once observed that you have the most fundamental and major decision that you have to make in your life is this: to live in a friendly or a hostile universe. Which isn't? Is it a universe that is filled with hostility and anger and people wanting to hate each other and people wanting to kill each other? Is that what you see? Because when you see the world that way, that's exactly what you will create for yourself in your life.
And then you get people to fight and war with each other. So now we're not only a herd mentality, the herd mentality is at war with itself. And while we're cussing each other and shouting each other and blaming each other, the few are pulling the strings of all sides. Because if you are going to hold a position of global control, you have to have conflict and chaos. You try manipulating harmony. You try manipulating people who have respect for another's right to be different. Someone with a different vision of possibility shows that the norms are not the only possible reality.